The link will be in the description box.
Have you noticed how the unelected intellectual terrorists who seem to be leading the way in the coronavirus hoax are keen on phrases to describe what they're doing to us and what they want to do next, when they've got us all neatly tied up and terrified? I should explain, by the way, that I'm perfectly serious in describing the proponents of the coronavirus hoax as terrorists. Terrorism can be defined as using intimidation and violence in the pursuit of political aims. Well, governments everywhere have been certainly using intimidation to pressurise us into being scared of their fashionable version of the flu bug. And if someone threatens to send uniformed men round to arrest me if I don't obey their stupid rules, then as far as I'm concerned, that's violence. In some countries, the police have used violence to separate people accused of breaking the rules. To get back to the phrases they've adopted to describe the world they want us to live in. First, there is the new normal, of course, which should be the new abnormal because it bears absolutely no resemblance to anything I'm inclined to accept as normal. I have nothing but contempt for people who are so supine that they'd willingly wear masks when popping to the shops, or who would rather step off the pavement in front of the number 29 bus rather than risk sharing pavement space with another citizen. I've been retired from medical practice for years and I took my name off the medical register a long time ago, but I'm thinking of putting it back on so that I can certify as insane anyone who wears a mask or does the social distancing dance on the pavement or in a shop. Masks dehumanise us and take away our human qualities. One of the saddest sights I've seen recently was that of two Ferrari racing drivers standing side by side, proudly wearing their masks. Oh please, I can't see Sterling Moss, Mike Hawthorne or Gilles Villeneuve wearing silly masks. Excuse me, I will say, standing outside one of the new vaccination centres that they'll soon be building on every street corner. Why are you wearing a mask? Mumble, they'll reply through the requisite number of layers of material. Too stupid to know that most of the masks available have pores big enough to let through any imaginable virus. And then I'll pull out the Mental Health Act form and sign them up for a long-paid holiday in the loony bin. Another one bites the dust. Then there's the green recovery, which sounds far less fun than the pink recovery, which I intend to promote when I've got a spare minute or two, and no more meaningful than the purple with yellow spots recovery. I've never had much faith in green recoveries since a racing car fellow painted his car green and claimed he'd done so in order to make clear it had green credentials. How can a car driven round and round in circles using a gallon every 3 or 4 miles ever be green? Still, racing car people live in a world of their own. I see that the Mercedes Formula One team is painting its cars black this year in some sort of show of solidarity with black people. Oh, it seems to me to be more akin to virtue signalling via a paint job guaranteed some publicity. I'm not sure what good a new paint job will do to improve people's lives in Africa, though I suspect it may all have something to do with the fact that one of their drivers, a chap called Lewis Hamilton, is very outspoken about black issues and what needs to be done. Personally, I'd have more respect for Hamilton's views if he hadn't buggered off to Monaco or Switzerland as soon as he started earning enough money to pay decent amounts of income tax and make a real contribution to the world. You can't really expect to have a voice in social affairs if you don't contribute meaningful amounts of tax from your own income. Mind you, Hamilton also claims to be keen on environmental issues and yet spends his life flying around the planet in order to drive cars round and round in circles. But then celebrities all live on a different planet to the rest of us. In my view, Hamilton would gain a little more admiration and respect if he gave half his annual salary to poor people in Africa in lieu of paying British income tax. And of course, there's the global reset, which basically means allowing a bunch of bossy fascists to decide what's good for us, what we should eat, what we should do with our lives, and in due course, what we should think and what we should believe in. There's a war going on for control of our world, our lives, our minds, our souls, and our destiny. Talking of souls, I'm very suspicious, by the way, of the various religious leaders who seem surprisingly keen to shut down their churches, cathedrals, mosques, and synagogues when the flu first arrived a few months ago. Why did they not feel that their congregations might need a little solace at a time like this? Most congregations have been happily practicing social distancing for years, so even if there'd ever been any theoretical risk, there wasn't much of a practical risk. Was it just simple cowardice and irreligious self-preservation which led to the betrayal of millions in their time of need? Or were they helping to soften us up for a new world in which traditional religion is considered inappropriate and possibly even illegal? We aren't going to be allowed to have any choice in these matters because the unelected folk, most of whom none of us had ever heard of before, know better than we do what we want. There was a time when people used to vote and choose politicians according to their promised policies. Of course, it was understood that the politicians would lie and that very few of their promises would be kept. But there was a semblance of democracy in the whole business, and politicians knew that if they lied too much, they wouldn't be given power at the next elections. But the unelected ones, who seem to have given themselves the power to decide our future for us, seem to be wanting to take control with no mandate. Prince Charles, Bill Gates, George Soros, and a variety of characters at something called the World Economic Forum have taken upon themselves the authority to decide what's good for us. In my view, these hundreds of people, and there are hundreds of them, are morally empty, corruption being burnt into their empty souls. A bunch of people who probably think they're all doing the right thing for the right reasons, but to me all seem to be doing the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. The World Economic Forum used to be famous only for its daft Davos conferences, at which we all smiled rather indulgently. But now this and other organisations have shown us their true colours, and we're clearly in a fight to the death. It's them or us. The truth to them is what they say it is and what they want it to be. How many of all these people are using COVID-19 to promote their own financial interests at our expense? We're living in Lewis Carroll's worst nightmare. It's difficult not to feel impressed at the way they're managing to keep us oppressed through the constant application of fear. It's a simple recipe and it works well with the simple-minded. And then there's the oil. This, like the deliberately engineered coming food shortage, is a big part of the future problem we face. The coronavirus crime has now turned into a global warming crime. Curiously, the two appear to have become inextricably linked. We're told that the coronavirus appeared because of climate change and that we must therefore put all our effort into tackling climate change. Although, as I explained in my video entitled "Climate Change is a Lot of Hot Air," the whole argument is childish gibberish, unsupported by science and largely promoted by publicity-seeking celebrities, the ill-formed and the ignorant. Politicians, business leaders and environmentalists are all fighting one another for the high moral ground as they demand that as the economy is reset, it puts climate change top of the list of requirements. The vast majority of people around the world realise that the climate change nonsense is just that, nonsense. It's propaganda with a sinister purpose. The manipulators who are trying to take over the world, and doing very well, it has to be admitted, are using people like Prince Charles, that Swedish kid, and untold ignorant celebrities to give them an excuse to take control. At least that's how it seems to me. And so we're constantly being told that we must stop using oil and other fossil fuels and rely on alternative sources of energy. As I pointed out in the video entitled "Climate Change is a Lot of Hot Air," this means relying on biomass, which is wood from trees, because wind and solar don't provide enough energy to power the laptops and mobile phones so beloved of the climate change nutters. And in the UK, the wood we burn comes from trees chopped down in America, cut up into tiny bits and then brought across the Atlantic in diesel-powered ships. Imagine the amount of energy that requires. What the nutters don't seem to realise is that the oil really is running out. Russia and former USSR countries provide 40% of the EU's supplies, and they're running out. African supplies are also falling. The oil currently being formed deep down in the earth will be ready in 50 million years, but I'm not sure I can wait that long. The shortages are exacerbated by the fact that the big oil companies have been bullied into cutting exploration by 25%, so they obviously aren't finding much new oil. As a result, one of two things is going to happen. Either the price of oil is going to soar again in the next few years, or millions of people are going to starve or freeze to death as energy systems collapse. Well, maybe that's what they want. Certainly a lot of the unelected people who've started talking about overpopulation and the need for a global depopulation program would presumably welcome that. I know that our world has been pretty well destroyed by a reaction to a bug which caused a small part of the problems caused by ordinary flu. I know that we're being lied to constantly. I know also that our food supplies are being deliberately damaged, and if you want to know more about what's happening to our food supplies, just read the transcript of my video on food, which YouTube banned, presumably because it was full of facts and truths. The video is entitled Why You Should Stockpile Food Now. YouTube kept part 2 but banned part 1. The video is, I think, still around on places like BitChute, and the transcript is on www.vernoncoleman.com. Just go to the health button and it's there at the top of the page. As I've already said, our energy supplies are desperately under threat too, and without oil there'll be hundreds of millions of deaths around the world. That's no exaggeration. Without oil and other fossil fuels, there'll be virtually no electricity for farming or cooking, and transport will grind to a halt. That may all sound very nice to the nutters who dream of living in tents in idyllic rural parts, relying on government handouts and stealing turnips, but it's a fact of life that they and the frail, the elderly, the very young, and most of the rest of us will freeze to death or starve without oil. Oh, and those who are selfish and greedy enough to be still in love with their electric cars, quite rightly claiming that the subsidies mean that they're cheap to run, might like to think a little more about how electric cars are made and the fact that they've been shown to make global warming worse. Fans of electric cars tend to forget that the huge quantities of rare earth metals, such as lithium, rhodium and cobalt, are required for the batteries and have to be dug out of the ground using machinery which is powered with diesel or petrol. An electric car can require 10 kilograms of cobalt and 60 kilograms of lithium, and huge amounts of copper are needed too. The car industry is already struggling to find enough cobalt and lithium to make batteries for electric cars. The planet's supply of these goodies is very limited, and the huge demand for copper for all the wiring. The mining required to dig up all these elements needs a huge amount of fuel-guzzling equipment. As an aside, by the way, half of all the cobalt needed is mined in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I suggest that the electric car fans do a little research into the Democratic Republic of Congo. Many of the rare earths used in the manufacture of electric car batteries are dug out of the ground by children as young as 7. Sanctimonious green electric car buyers will doubtless be delighted to know that they're providing work for so many under 12s. The price of the materials required for electric car batteries is going to soar, and the mines mean much ruination of the land. The fans of electric cars never seem worried about this, nor do they campaign to leave the cobalt and the lithium in the ground as they do with the oil. To get back to the electricity supplies, whatever happens, I believe there are going to be major electricity outages in the next year or two. Make plans if you can. There are generators and long-term storage batteries available. And at the very least, get a kettle that will run off the cigar lighter in a car, and you can at least make a cup of tea or hot soup, or have a hot toddy when the weather gets chilly. Thank you for watching An Old Man in a Chair, and thank you for your support and encouragement. I'm off to have a hot toddy. Please copy and share the videos on Twitter and Facebook, from which I'm banned, and on BitChute too, and other platforms. Let's spread the truth. If you'd like to put on a translation, that would be great. If my videos disappear, then please go to my website to find out where you can see them. And the transcripts of all my videos, including the banned ones, are always on my website, www.vernoncoleman.com. If you do visit mainstream media, put on messages asking people to watch these videos to find the truth. This channel hasn't been monetized, I haven't authorized any advertising, and there's no sponsorship. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please subscribe to my channel, because they're not always easy to find. Although it may feel like it at times, please remember you're not on your own. More and more people are waking up to the truth. I firmly believe that together we can and will win this fight.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for watching.